Alright, so I'm doing this video in my living room because I got dinner right over there cooking, and I need to be ready for it, which gives me about 15 minutes to try and say what I want to say in this video. And I got my electrolyte water here. I just did a workout, so just threw on a shirt and here we go. I want to talk something that I was thinking about today with this Charlie Kirk stuff. I mean, the evidence is overwhelming over what really happened. I'm just waiting any day now. I made a Candace cultist very unhappy on Facebook today just because I pushed back on some of the things that she was saying. I wasn't being mean. I wasn't calling her names. I didn't laugh at her comments. None of that stuff. But she said I was mansplaining to her things. I explained the bullet, the thing that goes around these days about the bullet, being it didn't match. And it's like, that comes from a very misleading, very dishonest, like tabloid headline. The actual fact is the bullet fragmented so much they couldn't really identify it. That's very different than the bullet not matching. And she got really upset with that and was like, basically said I was making a distinction without a difference. And I'm like, nope, that's not what I was doing. When you can't determine the mismatch unless you can identify the bullet. They couldn't identify the bullet, which meant it was inconclusive. That's it. So that means it can go both ways. But whatever, categories and critical thoughts are not very, not attributes of the candy cult. So, but I was thinking, among other things, the bullet theory itself of the impact of the bullet. I'm waiting right now, just for any day now, for just them to come out and confirm it was a low grain 30-06 bullet. That would explain so much. It would explain the idea that the fact that it just hit the neck and most of the damage was internal rather than external. And thank God, I know this is kind of a bittersweet thing, but thank God that's all it was. Can you imagine that on live TV, just an actual full grain? I mean, it would have taken his head off. I mean, that would have been, oh my gosh, that would have been the most graphic thing to ever be seen on social media. It's graphic enough. Anyways, I don't want to even think about that, but I'm just waiting for to come out and get that confirmation, because I've been telling people that, first of all, bullets do crazy things. Anybody who knows guns knows that. The other thing is that it was his grandpa's rifle, from what I remember. He used his grandpa's rifle. And a 30-06 is a pretty big bullet. I've fired 30-06 rifles before. Man, those suckers kick like a mule, and they're loud, very loud. An older man typically might struggle to handle a weapon with that kind of firepower. So maybe it's he has 30-06 bullets that are lower grain that make it a little bit easier to control the rifle when he fires it, which would explain, if Tyler Robinson had one of those bullets, it would explain it not doing as much external damage to Charlie's neck. Again, I keep telling people, why not, instead of, before we jump into the conspiracy theories, let's just do the simple explanation. Because I've done that before. I've tried to over explain something without the proper data, and then found out that I was totally wrong, and you just basically get egg on your face, and it saves you a lot of trouble. I mean, if after all of this is done, I mean, all of the candy cult people are gonna look, and I mean, they're not gonna admit it, they're gonna stick with it, but they're gonna look really stupid. And I'm like, they already look really stupid, but I'm like, why don't you just try to do that, and just don't make any claims beyond what you already know. That's what I've done. And look, I kept telling myself, if we did find out it was Israel, okay, cool. Not even cool, but there it is. But there is none. There's no proof of that. I just want to go where the evidence shows me. And the cool thing about that is when you just go where the evidence shows you, you can always change your mind and you don't look like an idiot. You just follow the evidence. And the evidence seemed to be looking this way, and then all of a sudden more evidence comes in. It's like, oh wait, no, it's going that way. You can just go, oh, so it's actually going in that direction, you know, and there you go. But there was something that I wanted to talk about here with all of these the candy cults and stuff like that, and the precedent. There's a precedent that they're setting that I think is really disturbing. I've watched a lot of, you know, I Sunday nights I go to my parents' house and I hang out with them before the week begins. Have a cigar with my dad outside, and then we go inside, watch one of our TV shows, and then sometimes we watch some of those Dateline crime things. And it's like we sit around and we're kind of figuring out the whole thing ourselves before it gets solved. It's kind of fun, it's kind of cool, and we see a lot of the evidence, all of this stuff of these cases. There's camera evidence, there's all kinds of forensic evidence that they show, and it clearly points to a particular individual or a set of individuals. And it's like, let me give you an example. There's one on YouTube that I just watched the other day. Yeah, it's such a heartbreaking story. A young girl killed by this guy, even though I hate to say it, sometimes people put themselves in the positions that they end up in and get themselves killed, and you should not just don't do stupid things, just, you know. But you know, she was kind of leading this guy on and basically rejected him, and he flipped out and took her out into the desert and you know, assaulted her in various ways and then killed her. But you know, they've got his truck. They don't have him committing the crime on camera, but they got his truck going in the direction of the crime scene, where he said, you know, he was going in the opposite direction, of course, but they got his truck going in that direction. And they've got his DNA on her. You know, he was clearly at the scene, you know, because of the DNA that they found. It's just there. It's very obvious. His case was really bad. There's no suspects, and every story he told led to a dead end, which led them right back to him, you know. So, and I was thinking about that story. I'm like, you know, if the standard and the precedent that the conspiracy theorists are setting, where we have the camera evidence of Charlie Kirk's killer, he's on camera. And look, I'll grant you this. I cannot for life of me understand why in 2026 we do not have cameras that are newer than freaking 2023. I said in a Facebook post, you know, that the cars that I work on, their backup cameras have better resolution than these stupid CCTV cameras, whatever. I can't understand that at all. I mean, it's unbelievably stupid. But anyways, they've got him, but you can still tell that's him. It's the same posture, the same structure, everything like that. The cars, all that stuff. His DNA's all over everything. But that's not enough. Nope, it's all planted. It's all been planted. The precedent that is setting is basically that there is nothing in our judicial system that is trustworthy anymore. So when you watch any of those Dateline shows anymore, now you're gonna have to, if you're gonna be consistent with the conspiracy theorists, you're gonna have to start saying, you know, when they say they've got his DNA evidence on it, well, what if somebody planted that? Someone probably planted that on him, and they're setting him up. They set him up you know, the real killers set him up to set up a scapegoat so they can get away with killing that girl and leaving her out in the desert. You can just come up with anything at that point. It's all a conspiracy. Everything's a conspiracy. When you go down that road, there is the standard of proof is just gone. The standards of evidence are gone. The integrity of the justice system is gone. That's the problem. That to me is one of the big things that I worry about with these people. They have taken the basic, again, because I would invite these people to watch the other Dateline shows and stuff, and anything really, any kind of, and apply the same standards that they're applying to this Charlie Kirk case, and apply the same standards to there. And you won't do it. You won't. And And that for me is the big problem. See, I try to be consistent with everything that I do and I think about. I think about when I'm applying the same exact standards I apply to any investigation I've ever really delved into. And even things like Bigfoot. I've talked about Candace Owens and conspiracy theories with Bigfoot and weird paranormal stuff, and how just basically just stick with a simple explanation, you know, just stick with that. It's just easier. Occam's razor is just so much easier. It saves you from getting into serious trouble. But I take those same principles and I apply them all across the board. At least I try to. I'm sure I'm inconsistent in many, many ways, and I hope people call me out on that. And I'll go, oh yeah, you're right, you know. But that I think is one of the big problems with what this is implying. This whole thing with these people losing their ever living minds, and insistent that something else is going on. And look, I'm willing to grant. I told this girl on Facebook. Look, I'm willing to grant you that Tyler Robinson didn't act alone. You know, I think that's perfectly plausible, but he did pull the trigger. There's just no question about it. He pulled the trigger. Anyways, I just wanted to get that off my chest. I thought that was just something that was interesting. I hope that's just. I hope. Again, like I said, I'm expecting at any point now, we're gonna find out that the grainage of the bullet was a low grain 30-06 bullet. I was just thinking, I mean, these people, because a lot of them saying is Israel. You know, Israel. These are the people who put pagers on Hamas agents and blew them up. I mean, these guys are good. And then forgot, hey guys, why did we say it was a 30-06 when it wasn't? Oh crap. Or how about just this? They got to be sitting around thinking, why the heck didn't we just poison a glass or something like that, like a glass of wine? You know, he's out on a date with his wife. Just that would have made it really look bad for Erica. You know, that would have really been bad for her. You know, why didn't they just poison a wine glass? Accidents, you know, car accident, you know, plane goes down. That's a lot of ways that I'm sure that isn't that a way they kill people. I mean, a lot of conspiracy theories talk about plane crashes and that there happened to be some person on the plane that nobody wants to talk about. I mean, why not something like that? Charlie Kirk just went down in a plane accident and then just, oops, bad accident, you know. You wonder why they didn't just do it in a more simple way. You know, they made it incredibly. See, again, this is the thing with conspiracies. A good conspiracy is as simple as possible with as few actors in the conspiracy as possible. For this conspiracy theory to work, there's so many people who have to be involved, just like tons and tons of people, and you have to keep adding more and more people involved. It's like, wow, Charlie, didn't realize you're the Messiah of today or something like that, and the world crucified you. I guess, you know. It's weird. It's silly. It's dumb. Stick with a simple explanation. Just stick with that, and you're not going to lose your mind. And get off of social media. I think that would solve so many problems right now if we just got off social media. That's what I try to do. So I'm going to get back to my post-war consensus videos soon. Sorry, it's been a while. I've had a lot going on, work and other things like that. Obviously, I'm not getting paid to do YouTube videos. I probably could have put the effort into it, but I just don't. I don't know. I just don't think a lot of what I think about is worth talking about, and I'm not really good at this stuff. So, anyways, I'm gonna get back to that very soon. But for now, I gotta go. So, Deo Gloria. God bless. Bye.